Welcome to this fifth edition of CenterView, a first of its kind virtual discussion sponsored by Baltimore's oldest and preeminent business networking and dining club, the Center Club. Our aim, as if you've joined us in the past, is to feature the people and the issues that impact our present and are shaping our future. And we're delighted to be able to feature prominent and accomplished Baltimoreans, others from across our region who are making a difference and who matter to all of the issues that we're obviously preoccupied with living here in the city we love. I'm your host. I'm Greg Tucker. In addition to being a Center Club board member, I'm a Baltimore City resident since 1997. Baltimore is our home, and I'm an independent strategic communications advisor. But not enough about me. Today, we're thrilled to have with us John Angelos, who's the chairman and CEO of the Baltimore Orioles and president of the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network, MASN. During his nearly 3 decades at the forefront of sports, media, and entertainment, John has become a much sought-after expert, making regular appearances on CBS television and radio, Bloomberg Media, PBS, MSNBC, Fox Sports Radio, you name them all, ESPN, of course, as well as by other major news outlets, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, The Nation. And John has lots of interest in addition to this team that we love and has meant so much to Baltimore. John's won high praise for his reinvention of the spring training business model, something we'll come to and spend some time talking about. He also has a passion and a visionary approach to creating what they call taxpayer conscious. I like the way that's phrased, public-private sports partnerships, and all around how sports venues can be a force for positive change and community engagement. So John and of course the Angelos family are well known here for their keen commitment to philanthropy and to making critical investments in so many areas as a way of attacking inequity and creating pathways for opportunity. Again, something we'll talk about during our time together. So with that, let me welcome you, John. Thank you for making time. We're delighted that you've agreed to be our 5th guest. I'm sorry you weren't the first, but we couldn't get on your schedule. And to bring us up to date on all things having to do with baseball, our hometown team, the O's, as well as some other topics that I know are close to your heart. So welcome.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here. And 5th guest is good. Brooks Robinson's number is fine by me.
Right. I'm going to do a little show and tell here. I happened to look over here on my bookshelf. I've got this baseball that there's your father's signature, of course, that I've had for years. And there's Marvin Hamlish. I took Marvin to a game. Marvin was the Pops conductor of the Baltimore Symphony back then. And over here is Joe Torre, though it's awfully faded, so you really can't see it on this. So I thought, well, there's a conversation piece, but that's right. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so thanks again, John. Let's just jump in here. I guess I should note at the start here that Major League Baseball team owners recently voted to approve you. We've seen that in the news as the control person. They didn't say control freak. Control person for the Baltimore Orioles, meaning that you'll be taking really your father's place as chief executive responsible for the team. Your father, of course, is a legend here in Baltimore. I know you mentioned he's doing well, and it's great to hear. Talk to us about that transition or change and transition of leadership.
Well, you and I were chatting about my father. I saw him Wednesday and Thursday, and he's doing well. Thanks for asking. And in a lot of ways, it's in each of these professional sports situations, you will have inevitably a partnership group, and it very much functions that way as it does here. And we've had quite a bit of continuity in our partnership group with all local folks, Maryland natives, Baltimore natives that have had an interest over the last 25, 30 years in the club and before that. And although the league, and it's all the leagues, not only Major League Baseball, prefers to designate a person as the partnership representative. They even use terms like control person. It's not really a material change for us. There's continuity of local ownership, and that's what's most important. I've spent a number of decades, as you said, in and around the sports business, and it's something that I'm comfortable with, and in and around the regional sports television business, and certainly being a Baltimorean, it's a great thing to be involved with, and like all of our partners, I certainly want nothing but the best for the franchise into the future in Baltimore.
Great, great. That's it. And I'm sure you get annoyed or bemused by rumors always that fly about the team, its future in Baltimore. I can think of few, if any, Baltimore's major institutions that have meant so much or made such a difference to the city and our region than the O's. But I'll turn it over to you to just make any comments you wish on that front. And I know you have great ambitions for the team and for a great season ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's a better question to get out of the way early. Bemused is a good term for it. I think this is true around the country, and I don't think it matters what local community or what sport you're talking about. Folks don't get involved with any institution or any stewardship type of a relationship like the Ravens, the Orioles, et cetera, to do anything except make it as strong as it can be, and to do anything other than perpetuate the continuity of it. So certainly the club, like the partnership group that is involved with it, is in it for the long haul, and certainly there'd be no other scenario other than the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore. Right.
Well, there, you've laid it to rest. Good. Okay. Well, let's cut to the chase then. So bring us up to speed, if you will. Are those of us who've joined, of course, are looking for any sort of inside baseball, if you will, insights into the lineup, what's underway now, and obviously how that what that portends for the future in the coming season. Anything you'd like to bring us up to speed with? I know, of course, you have great confidence in Mike Elias and his what he's doing with the team.
Yes, we do. We have the entire partnership group has great confidence, and I do as well, in the entire Orioles management team that runs the club on a day-to-day basis, and certainly in Mike Elias and Sig Meidel and Brandon Hyde, and that team, that baseball ops leadership group has been in place for coming up on 2 years now, and the early returns have been very positive. The club its scouting and player development function has steadily risen in the ranks and is now in the top 10, top 8, I think, actually, depending on which of these groups that sort of measures these things you look to. But by all accounts, Mike's done a fabulous job, and that's not a surprise to us. We thought Mike was a quality person, and a person of great integrity, and someone who'd been trained in the St. Louis Cardinals organization, where Mr. DeWitt runs a very, very good organization, and a former partner of ours, actually, of my family's and my father's, going back to the beginning of our involvement in the Orioles. So knowing that Mike came up in Bill DeWitt's organization with the Cardinals speaks volumes for him, and certainly Mike had a tremendous amount of success at the Astros and was highly thought of around Major League Baseball, as he is still today. So we're very, very gratified at the progress that's been made. Baseball has a certain arc to it, as we know. Yep. Scouting and player development takes a little bit of time. It's a little bit different than some of the other leagues, relatively speaking. The Orioles had a really nice run from 2012 to 2016. During that period, we won more games than any other team in the American League. And we have every confidence that Mike and his group will bring us back to that same place, hopefully fairly soon.
Are they keep you up to date? Are they? I know you go down to Sarasota and quite often, or in normal times at least. Anything that you're hearing, or anything you wish to share, or just confidence?
Well, I think the most important, Trey Mancini has been making a great recovery from what he'd been going through, and everybody's really happy about that, obviously. So that's very good. I know the baseball folks felt positive about some of the individual stories on the field this year, with some of the younger players taking a step forward, some of the younger pitchers. I think not only players that Mike has brought into the system, but that were in the system already and that were traded for just before Mike came on board. So, our management style is to, try to work to hire the best people and delegate to them. And I don't have that many more compelling insights than we get a lot of nice media coverage, and things tend to be, sort of well reported in this age of media coverage. But yeah, I think certainly, Trey making his comeback is important. For a good deal of this past truncated season, obviously Trey didn't play at all because he was recovering, going through his therapy. And for a good deal of the time, most of the outfield of the maybe the starting outfield in the future wasn't able to play together due to injury or illness. So that's, I think Mike's pretty encouraged about that. We're in the process of moving forward with our Dominican Republic plan. So a lot of it's research and development, and I think so far all signs have been very, very good.
Excellent. The ongoing COVID threat has been an utterly surreal experience for all of us, of course, and disrupted our way of life, and a way none of us could have imagined in our lifetimes, I suppose. But of course, it's disrupted America's favorite pastimes. And so, talk about the team members and the impact, if you can, or any views or insights you have on that, and how you've adapted, or you had to adapt in the spring, the summer to the threat and the impact on the requirement of really fanless games. So odd, so surreal.
Well, yeah, and it's hard to believe, that this obviously started right in the middle of spring training, which is 8 months ago. But I think to all of us feels like it was a lot longer than that. And, this did, on a personal level, I did happen to be in Sarasota at the time, coincidentally. It's when you look back at those sort of snapshots in time and think about a couple of, kind of anecdotes that illustrate what many of us were thinking. If you recall, there were teams that continued to practice. I think the Yankees met and the team voted to keep working out. There were players were still coming into the facilities a bit. The Orioles actually closed our facility and never reopened it in Sarasota on the thinking that this, nobody really knew, but that this probably would be something we'd be living with. Not what it turned out to be the case, but I don't think any of us imagined it would be what it has turned out to be. It is amazing looking back that we were able to play a season and complete a season, even a truncated one. The challenges were fairly immense, and Commissioner Manfred and everybody in the commissioner's office, and really all the teams did pull together. I mean, from the minute it began, we started doing something we hadn't done, which was in the industry, which was to have weekly calls of all the ownership groups, and that continued for at least 6 months. And when you consider the NBA had a bubble, and was able to get all that done, which was amazing. We considered a bubble in Major League Baseball, but that turned out to be not practical for a variety of reasons. Just too many people to actually create a contiguous quarantine was the major reason. So as a result, we went with what we ended up doing, which was a controlled environment locally and regionalized travel. And there were a couple of outbreaks. There were a couple of teams, the Cardinals and the Marlins, that had some issues, and a few other things here and there. And at those moments in time, it seemed like the season, we might not make it through, much like what it seems the NFL is experiencing right now, and including here in Baltimore with the Ravens. And we'll have to see there. Hopefully they're going to pull through it. it's tough to do when you don't have a bubble. I would imagine it's even tougher in football because the contact's even closer. But, it was a bit touch and go in baseball, and fortunately we were able to do it. And even at the end, we had a bit of a bubble for the playoffs. And then we actually were able to get fans in on a limited basis for the league championship series and the World Series, which was progress. So, but a lot, I'm really proud of our management team because nobody had a playbook for this. And we ran a really good local ship. Our medical team at MedStar and our longtime trainers were able to create a really professionalized system and really deserve all the credit. And we do have folks that have been with us for decades, and that really helped to know baseball and to know the medical and training side of things. And I think that and the commissioner's office leadership helped a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Let me sort of shift a little bit, because speaking of, I mentioned that fanless games are very scaled down, very sparsely attended games. The last time the O's played to an empty stadium was in the wake of Freddie Gray's death in 2015. And of course, on April 29th of that year, the O's defeated the Chicago White Sox 8-2 in the first fanless or crowdless game ever played by Major League Baseball. This was something Wes Moore, who was a guest a couple of episodes ago, noted in his book, 5 Days, The Reckoning of an American City. Share with us that experience. And this will lead us into some of the other areas I know we wanted to touch on before we open it to questions. But what that experience, and it's something you feel very, very strongly about or personally about.
Well, I think if you're from Baltimore, you feel really strongly about it. We were certainly at the epicenter of that moment in time, and it's interesting to look back, especially with some of the more recent happenings around social change and around people having being killed and injured in interactions with parts of the police departments around the country. I say that because as has been much talked about, the majority of those involved in policing are good folks who are doing a good job. But there are exceptions to that, and we've experienced that here, and it's been experienced many times, too many times in the United States. And that's something that I think if you're from Baltimore, we were at the tip of the spear there in terms of the most recent 5 or 10 year period. Mm-hmm. What you mentioned, Wes, and I actually didn't know Wes until he'd reached out to me in the course of writing his book. And I guess one of the benefits of all of the change we've all experienced is much like the way we all came together around the COVID situation, and we're continuing to come together. I hope hopefully we're continuing to come together more than we're coming apart, and hopefully the coming years will be more about the former. But certainly that experience in Baltimore and some of the people that I met, that but for all the strife, we all may not have considered some of the things that we're now considering, and how we can hopefully make some reparations or make some corrective measures to try to make our smooth out the inequities in society. And we've certainly, there are a lot of reasons for it. They weren't made in a day, they were made in a couple of generations, and they're going to take a long time to solve. It'd be nice if we could sort of say a couple of comments in the press that attract attention. And as you're alluding to, I got a little bit of attention a few years ago, but unfortunately that doesn't solve a lot of problems, and hopefully it sheds a little light, but we got a long way to go. Certainly I think Baltimore would really benefit from more support at the federal level, and we can't do it all alone. It doesn't matter how many of us come together here locally or even across the state. We're going to need reinvestment at the federal level to help us, and cities like ours across the country.
Right. The big part of your philanthropic focus has been in pioneering the use of sports and media platforms to create measurable community benefit and to be a catalyst for positive change, the type you're talking about. You've made no secret, as you just reiterated, of your commitment to championing diversity and those issues around civil rights and defeating systemic racism. And you're doing so with the platform, the Players Alliance. Let's give us an overview of what that's about and what that platform aims to achieve. I know you're part of the board, I believe, of the platform, the Players Alliance.
The Players Alliance is a new, relatively new organization that was created by African American players throughout Major League Baseball, whose goal, among other things, was to better coordinate the efforts that they are making as a group to make change in communities at-risk communities where they're hoping to use their philanthropic efforts and their platforms as major league players and former major league players to make a difference. And Baltimore would be is one of their target communities to make a difference. One of the many interesting things about that group, and I was invited to be a member of the advisory board along with several other club ownership groups, is that they didn't seek out to be aligned only with the players union or only with Major League Baseball. They wanted to be really bipartisan, I guess you might say. They wanted to see how they could reach across the aisle and partner with local community groups, with clubs, with ownership, with management, with the union, with the commissioner's office to try to make a transcendent difference. Curtis Granderson is the president of the group. CC Sabathia and others are the leaders, but their goals are really aspirational, and that is to broaden the participation of minority groups both between the lines and the impact that sports and baseball in particular can have outside the lines. So I'm very optimistic about the approach that the Players Alliance is taking to trying to make a difference.
Interesting. Yeah, sounds like an amazing initiative. I'll just bring it local here. I know you as a community leader, and of course, where Camden Yards sits, you're very focused on the fate of downtown, something there's been a lot of talk about. Certainly, the whole COVID threat has accelerated some really serious challenges. There's lack of confidence, or has been, about coming downtown. We have a new administration just days away, and of course, that presents an opportunity to do things new and differently, perhaps. What are your thoughts about the downtown and how the O's and Camden Yards can be that, I know you've opened right before COVID, Camden Yards to music concerts, and that's a big passion of yours as well, music, and how to create a more vibrant experience at the stadium in addition to sports.
Right, and the Ravens have done a good job over the decade with other types of events, and that's what we've been striving to do recently. Obviously, COVID interrupted so many of our best laid plans, and additional concerts. We obviously had Billy Joel in 2019, and we had high hopes to have other events of that stature as well. Hopefully, when the world gets back to normal, or partially back to normal, we can re-energize that. We certainly stay in touch with all of our partners, and we're looking ahead to when we can do that again at Camden Yards. Without some of the, as we know, as longtime members of the community, everybody on this call, without some of the transcendent, really courageous things that were done, from Harbor Place to Camden Yards to many of the other things that create tourism and economic impact and create jobs, both in the hospitality industry, the tourism sector, and elsewhere, the community wouldn't be as strong as it is. And we do need to keep in mind what's the next thing. Obviously, we need to. There's an effort to restore Harbor Place to what it once was, and that'll make a big difference. Hopefully, that effort grows and doesn't recede. And I think we're fortunate to have the professional sports teams and all the other major corporations and stalwarts of the community. Baltimore is. I think we're in a much better place than in some ways than we were 5 years ago. We came through this recent round of social change and social debate without any violence to speak of. It was very different than it was in 2015. It's certainly that was good for the community internally, and it was good for the brand externally, in that there weren't negative things being said about Baltimore. And I for one, and I think probably everybody on this call is very bullish about Baltimore. Baltimore has so much going for it. And I'm also hopeful that we can be a city and a state that sets an example in terms of bipartisanship and sets an example in terms of reaching across the aisle. We're a state that's heavily Democratic. We have a Republican governor. That's a great thing. That's a great thing and a great example for the country in a lot of respects. And hopefully we can build on that in the next 2 years of Governor Hogan's term and make some progress and not disintegrate into some sort of anything less than that.
Right. Good points. I'm cognizant of time, and I see we have quite a number of those who've joined us, and so I want to open it up to questions. Let's do that now, and then we'll continue our conversation with John Angelos, Chairman and CEO of the Baltimore Orioles and President of the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. So I would ask you all to either, only if you have a question, you'll need to unmute yourself, obviously. You can use the chat function to just indicate you have a question, or you can open your video. Let's see you, and you can hold your hand up, and I'll do my best to spot you and call on you. Navigating. There we are, John Davis. You're up there at least on my screen in the corner right. It's like Hollywood Squares here. But go ahead, John.
Hollywood Squares.
Yeah, remember that?
Actually, I do. My question's on the baseball side of the coin. From your perspective, what was a highlight of this truncated season?
I just saw you the other day, John. Nice to see you again.
Thanks for remembering.
I think it's not any one thing. I think certainly the ability of the team to play better in 2020 than it did in 19 and 18 is positive. That's progress. I think some of the young arms that Mike has been developing, and people saw a little bit of that at the major league level. I don't know how familiar folks are with the progress that Mike and his team made at the minor league level, where really in just one season from 18 to 19, the ERA and the strikeout to walk ratio across our entire minor league system dramatically improved. So that's more of a coaching and player development function than a scouting one. Scouting is going to take longer, but from a player development standpoint, Mike was very happy with that improvement. Obviously, there was no minor league baseball in 2020, and so that there wasn't an opportunity to showcase any further improvement there. But you did see young players contributing at the major league level. So I don't know that it was any one performance, but it is a team game, and I think particularly the style of play and the style of team building that Mike and Sig have created is very much about the sum of the parts being greater than the individual values. So I think it's more of a team effort than any one story.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, John. Thanks for your question. Okay, next question. Hold your hand up if you've got your video on, and otherwise send me a note in chat.
Mm-hmm.
There we are. Charles Young. How are you, Charles?
I'm fine. My question for John Angelos is, growing up in Baltimore, we had the Junior Orioles. We got 9 games to go to and watch the Orioles. And as young kids, we were very excited about, going to the Oriole games. I think it might have been 9 or 10 of us, and our parents got us the junior Oriole tickets to the 9 games. Do the Orioles organization has anything similar like that going on now?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. We've done a couple of things, and both of them are relatively recent. Well, one dates back a few years, the other is very recent. The first was to restore the Junior Orioles Club because it had been sort of modified in a number of ways, and we did restore it and made it much like what you just described. More recently, and just in the last couple of years, we added another dimension to our youth program by creating something we call Kids Cheer Free. And the idea behind Kids Cheer Free was that it's difficult, or a challenge at least, for young families to bring particularly younger children to games, because not only do you have to get organized and get your kids together with these more hectic schedules that we have today, and all the way the kids are scheduled and parents are torn in a number of directions. But once you get there, particularly for young kids, what you don't want to have to do is pay adult prices and adult concession prices and all that goes with a major league experience, but get there late and leave early. So we tried to be responsive to that by saying, well, at first we were going to say that if kids were under a certain age, they'd pay less. And then we thought, if a family wants to bring their youngest children out, kids under a certain age, 9, 10 years old, we'll just make it free. And we thought that was the best way to express to parents who want to come to the game and want their kids to experience the game at a very young age, that we're going to make it as easy as possible and as family budget friendly and affordable as we could. So the Kids Cheer Free program in the last couple of years has been sort of our taking the Junior Orioles Club to the next level.
Oh, great.
We good. Thanks, Charles. I've got Adam Clore. You're up next. Thanks for your signaling. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Angelos. Growing up as an Orioles fan, there was a time when Baltimore was the only team that had never finished last in the American League East. Back then, the Orioles were really on a winning way, and they kind of had a style of play called the Oriole Way that defined the culture and the organization all the way through the farm system. It was really a style of play and developing talent that was unique to Baltimore. I realize that free agency has kind of changed some of that to some degree, just in the new business model of baseball. But do you ever envision a set of circumstances where that type of culture might reappear with your Orioles, and might see that again?
Well, I do. From 83 to 96, the Orioles really hadn't been in the playoffs, and that's we were fortunate under this partnership group to get the club back in 2 AL championship series in the mid to late 90s, and then we had a long period where we weren't in the playoffs again, much like the Orioles had been sort of in that post-Oriole Way period that you described, and before this group became involved. I mentioned earlier the 2012 to 2016 period, we were very successful. And you're right, free agency and the trend in the baseball ecosphere, where payrolls were sort of moving up to very high levels in the big markets and sort of stagnating in the small markets. There's definitely, all of those forces have been a challenge. Now, one interesting phenomenon is over the last 10 to 15 years, the NBA and the NHL has sort of moved down the continuum towards the NFL model of a more balanced way of approaching it, more full revenue sharing, a different approach to payrolls. And you've seen, if you look at comparative industries, you've seen the NHL, which at one time was really struggling, really flourish as they've moved down that continuum. The NBA has also become more popular. Baseball's revenues have also grown dramatically. And I would say that's encouraging because baseball's revenues have grown in spite of the fact that we don't have as much balance. Now, you did have a World Series this year, albeit in a shortened season, where you had a very small market club in the Rays that rebuild really, really perpetually rebuild. And then obviously the biggest of big market clubs in many ways and big payrolls in the Dodgers. So, that was somewhat encouraging. We'll see. Some of the expanded playoff concepts I think are very positive in terms of giving aspirational hope to smaller and mid-market clubs. I'm optimistic. We've still got some modernization and some reform that needs to come. And hopefully that's going to be a partnership in baseball the way it has been, largely been in the other sports. And then I think it puts everybody on more of an even playing field and helps that Orioles way approach. It really starts to show you that the best operators, which is really what you're talking about, right? The Oriole way was about who's operating at the highest level, and you start to get the benefit of that. But we had a nice run there. Tampa Bay's done a great job, and all credit to them. And that's really the goal. That's where the Orioles want to be. And I'm confident with Mike and his group, we're going to be there soon.
Good. Thanks, Adam. Okay, Charlie, take it away. Orlinsky, Charlie.
John, thank you for talking to us today. I'm just curious how, I guess, COVID has kind of impacted, I guess, the stunt of the growth of the team. I know, obviously, there weren't any games played in the minors this year. And there's been a lot of talk about kind of getting rid of teams. And I guess also at like the management level, I'm sure you guys haven't been able to kind of hire guys to come in because of COVID. And obviously the revenue hasn't been as great this year compared to past years. So I was just curious about the growth of the team in that respect.
Well, yeah, no, that's a great question. So great question. None of our baseball experts were happy about the lack of losing a year in player development, as you say. On the other hand, what we did accomplish in the form of player development was a different format to player development. We did have the minor league camp at Bowie, where we had 40 or 50 players there working out intensively, not playing a lot of games because there wasn't a minor league season, just inter squad. But there was an enhanced opportunity really to teach and train and coach. When you have less travel, and you couldn't have travel, you couldn't be on buses because of COVID, as you mentioned, as we know, there was an opportunity to keep the players together and really train those players that were the closest to the major league level, the ones that could be the most helpful potentially in 2020 if you had injury, and that were the highest level prospects for 21 and beyond. The other thing that Michael Eyes did was put together an instructional league when the season ended in Sarasota. We did reopen the facility for the first time at that point in time in order to continue the teaching and training, to try to expedite our best prospects to move up the ranks as quickly but as judiciously as possible. So that was a different kind of a player development, a different kind of year and a different kind of development. Don't know that it won't serve us well going forward. It was a lot more efficient use of time. Again, less competition, but more teaching and training. And in some ways, maybe it came at the right time for this organization because we're in such a clear rebuild mode. And for a long, long time, I think one of the questions or even criticisms of the organization, and it often happens in baseball, to not have a foot in every camp, to either be, going full speed for a championship or going into a full rebuild. And, we made the tough decision to go into a full rebuild. You typically don't get more friends and fans when you go into a full rebuild, but it was the right prescription, we thought. And, we're trusting in Mike's ability to do that. And so we had this opportunity to get some intensive training, and that was a positive. We'll see how it serves those prospects and those players as we go forward. But on the whole, I don't think we can really complain about that. Now, another year, if there's no minor league season in 2021, and that remains to be seen, sure, that's going to continue to be a headwind, I think, for all organizations. As you mentioned, there is a reform program, a modernization of minor league baseball that will bring the number of teams to 120. That's a longer conversation, but I think on the whole, That's a positive for the players and for the clubs. It focuses teaching and training on the best prospects. It's more, again, like the NFL and it's moving towards the NFL and the NBA model and away from sort of casting a wide net. And I think on the whole, it's probably better ethically because we'll be able to pay the players, minor league players, more, which is critical. And also it will get players in and out of the system at younger ages instead of having them sort of just hang around the system and be in it 5 or 6 years and then come out and not make the major leagues, which is not ideal in a lot of respects. So I think it's the right plan. And hopefully as it kicks in, we're in the right place, right time with a better system. And we've, as I mentioned, we're now in the top 10 and hopefully we'll be in the top 5 soon.
Good. All right. Looking here. Any questions here? I thought I saw a hand and I'm going to try to find it. Hold on here. Somebody didn't have, oh, well, Albert, I see your hand. So while I look for the other one, go ahead, Albert. Albert Councilman. Thanks, Albert. Just unmute yourself. There you go.
Thanks for having me on. And John, good to see you in person. Well, on the screen. I just wanted to comment your efforts and your outreach in 2 ways I want to comment about. One is towards children, which is outstanding. I have 5 grandsons that are ages 14 through 6, and they love baseball and they love the Orioles. So they miss the games, but they'll be back, obviously. But I wanted to comment, when I take them to see a game, whether it be at Camden Yards, and I've had the good fortune to take, I guess, 3 of my grandsons at different times to Sarasota. And it's always been an amazingly good experience for them, as it is for me, because the people who are there, whether they be ushers or vendors or people behind the counters, but wherever they are, it seems as if they really care about the fans and especially kids being there, and they reach out and make a special effort. So, and on a related note, the same effect the Oriole bird in the community is, well, at Camden Yards, at Sarasota, also out in the community, has an amazing effect on people and has been a part of a toy drive that we're involved with every year for many years, a Christmas toy drive. So it's an amazing, successful community outreach you have, as well as an outreach to young people. And I'm wondering, you have so many staff, so many who are part-time, manning the stadium. How do you get that spirit across? Because you do a good job. So how do you accomplish it?
Good question.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I remember, and I'm sure anybody on this call probably does, the Orioles really always had that. You talk about the Orioles, the Oriole way, and I remember that esprit de corps at Memorial Stadium and then at Camden Yards when it opened. And we've been really fortunate as an organization over the decades to have a great continuity in the event staff and the ushers group, and a great sort of love of the franchise and a great love of that Oriole bird and the logo and all it stands for. So that's a big help when you have a pool of people that in the community that want to be part of it. And that's always been the way as far back as I can remember. We inherited that in terms of this management team has, and hopefully we've continued to build on it. And you mentioned Sarasota. Sarasota, first of all, that's another place where we're very fortunate because it's a tremendous community that loves baseball, has almost a century of history in one form or another with baseball. Very much wanted the Orioles to relocate there from the East Coast. And what a sophisticated and civically minded community. It reminds me a lot of Baltimore. It's the West Coast of Florida. Very sort of quiet, self-deprecating, doesn't want a lot of credit, doesn't want to make a big splash, but makes a big impact. And we really love that community. just as we do Baltimore. And we've used Sarasota as a little bit of a laboratory. You mentioned kids and impacting kids, and we've done some programs there in Sarasota as a test to see what might work here as well as there. And you know, our wellness and fitness and training program for kids in Sarasota has been really well received. We were able to get it into every public middle school county-wide. That's how well received it was. We're putting over 5,000 kids a year through that program. And basically it says to kids that are in the middle school bracket, you know, eat and train and don't chew tobacco and don't smoke cigarettes and don't do e-cigarettes. And, you know, we were doing anti-e-cigarette campaigns 5 years ago, a little bit ahead of when the media picked up on it, because we thought it was an issue. And we thought it was targeted towards particularly kids that were in poor neighborhoods. And so that's been a great program in Sarasota, and we're looking to find ways to introduce it here in Baltimore. And, you know, the Oriole bird always, you know, perennially viewed as one of the most popular and kid-friendly mascots. So, you know, another thing that we're all sort of fortunate to have. So hopefully you just take advantage of these platforms and try to put them to work. And you do it by trial and error. And, you know, if anybody has a good idea, please email me and I'll pass it on to our management team, because we're always looking for ways to be more effective in how we roll these programs out.
Well, you're doing well, so thank you very much, and particularly with the youth programs and your thought about the Sarasota program bringing up to Baltimore for health and fitness. Great idea. I'd love to see it here.
Great. Thank you so much. Alvin, thank you, Albert. Alvin Katz, take it away.
Hi, John. Good to see you. Please give your regards to my regards to your father. Quick question: any chance of bringing back Tom Davis and Rick Dempsey for the pre and post game shows? Really missed them this season, and really enjoyed them.
Well, Tom and Rick are great guys and great Baltimoreans and friends, and they do a great job on the air and have for a long time. In addition to Rick being obviously the World Series MVP and such a great ambassador for the club. Obviously this season was like no other for all of us. This year was like no other for all of us. And we, on the broadcast side, we did just about everything different. And so did the entire league and the regional sports network industry. You know, we didn't travel talent to away games. We didn't hire crews in away cities. Everything was done a version of virtually. In fact, in many ways, it was done the way sports television was done in the 80s, where you got one feed and you split it, and both teams broadcast shared it. So for that reason, because of the loss of revenue and the need to cut expenditures in the COVID year, and also for the health and safety of everybody involved, in particular anybody that was a little bit older, it didn't make sense to introduce any more people to the environment than was needed. And so we went with a small group as we could, a minimal group, and we got through the season. And you know, as far as next year, there's unfortunately still an open question about how much of a season or what kind of season we're going to have. Hopefully it's going to be bigger and better and more fan access, or some fan access. And who knows, maybe depending on how the vaccines roll out, things will turn to the positive, which we all need, well beyond the diamond. We all need that in the community to get back to normal. But yeah, hopefully when we're broadcasting games again, everybody that's been involved in the past will be involved in the future. And that would be my hope. The management team decides all that. But for right now, it's about safety, and we'll just have to see what hand COVID deals us for next year.
Thank you,
John. I thank you, Alvin. I see Vaccine Day at Camden Yards somehow in your future. I can feel it.
Well, we had voting day, so we should have a vaccine, right? So yeah, and I mean, and that's another example. I mean, you know, it's not just about baseball and football. it's not just about soccer games and Billy Joel. It's putting these venues to work. So I hope that we'll have elections or voter access, every election at Camden Yards. And I hope
Brilliant
that,
idea.
we'll be able to do, I hopefully won't have to have more than one vaccine go around, and that'll be that. But let's do that. And then let's, it's about health, health and wellness. It's about health festivals, early screening, blood drives, which we do. But the more of that, the better. These are publicly owned venues, and it's our job, among other things, not just to entertain, but to put them at the disposal of the community.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I'm cognizant of time, and we're bumping up at the end of this. John, we're so fortunate again that the O's have demonstrated and continue to demonstrate that legacy of commitment to Baltimore, and your family, you personally stepped up now into this important role, and so we look forward to many great days ahead of winning baseball here, and thank you for all you do for the community and to trying to create the momentum that's needed to deal with the challenges we face. I know you get it, that it's all about us in this together. And
thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. Let me also say, we have not had a better partnership, and I'm sure the Ravens would say this too. Steve and Dick would say than we have had with Tom Kelso at the Stadium Authority, and with Governor Hogan, who've just done a really great job in trying to partner with both teams and trying to work with us to find ways to, as I mentioned, make the venues more accessible and make them more community oriented. And, I'm hopeful that the same will be true with the new incoming city administration and the new mayor-elect. The more we can partner and put these public-private partnerships to work, the better off the residents and the taxpayers are going to be. You mentioned that at the top of the hour, and I really, we're big believers in that. I know the Ravens are too. And I also should mention, I know we're all pulling for the Ravens to come out of this COVID situation as quickly as possible and get back to full strength and hopefully make the playoffs this year. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that.
Absolutely. I see you may want to take a look at this young man here on the lap of his father, Brian Bowles here. He's got this fine young player here, a future player. I don't know if you can see him, but our youngest participant. Thank you. So, well, thanks everyone. We'll keep these up. We have another one next month. I believe it's on the 14th, at Monday the 14th, with Calvin Butler, who is the president and CEO of Exelon Utilities. Got a lot to say about the community here and all that in his view, the potential that is represented. So thank you for tuning in. We'll make this available afterwards, and you'll get an email about that. John, thanks again. All the best to your family and your father, your mother, and your brothers. And thanks again for making time.
Great to be with you, Greg, and thanks everybody for all the questions and for checking in.
We'll be checking in with you again for sure. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.